What if I told you that everything you've been taught about overcoming fear is completely backwards? That the very strategies you use to feel safe are actually the chains keeping you imprisoned? There's a philosopher who saw through this illusion over a century ago, and his ideas are more relevant now than ever before. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't write self-help books. He didn't offer comfort or easy answers. Instead, he offered something far more valuable: a complete demolition of the comfortable lies we tell ourselves about fear, safety, and what it means to be free. And here's what's fascinating. The freedom he described isn't the freedom to do whatever you want. It's something far more profound and, frankly, far more terrifying. Most of us spend our entire lives running from fear. We build elaborate systems to protect ourselves. We follow rules we never questioned. We pursue careers that society approved of, but our souls rejected. We stay in relationships that slowly suffocate us because being alone seems worse. And we call this being responsible. We call this being mature. Nietzsche had a different word for it. He called it cowardice dressed up as virtue. Now, before you think this is going to be another one of those face your fears pep talks, let me stop you right there. Nietzsche's approach is different because he asks a question nobody else is asking. What if the problem isn't that you're afraid of the wrong things? What if the problem is that you've been taught to be afraid of the very things that would set you free? Think about this for a moment. From the time you were a child, you were taught to fear uncertainty, to fear standing out, to fear the judgment of others, to fear failure, to fear pain, to fear your own desires, to fear asking the questions that might unravel everything you thought you knew. And what did all this fear give you? Safety? Security? Or just a smaller and smaller box to live in? Here's where Nietzsche gets interesting. He noticed something that most people miss entirely. The things we call moral or good are often just socially acceptable ways of running from fear. When you sacrifice your own dreams to make your parents happy, we call that being a good son or daughter. But what if it's actually just fear of disappointing them? When you stay quiet about your real opinions to avoid conflict, we call that being diplomatic. But what if it's just fear of standing alone? When you follow the path everyone else is following, we call that being sensible. But what if it's just fear of the unknown? Nietzsche called this slave morality. And before you get defensive, hear him out. Slave morality isn't about being literally enslaved. It's about being enslaved by fear and then creating an entire moral system to justify that enslavement. It's when we take our fear and weakness and turn them into virtues. It's when we say, I'm not ambitious, instead of, I'm afraid to try. It's when we say, I'm humble, instead of, I'm afraid to claim my power. It's when we say, I'm content with what I have, instead of, I'm terrified of wanting more and failing to get it. Now, here's where this gets really uncomfortable. Nietzsche isn't saying you should become selfish or cruel. He's saying something much more radical. He's saying that most of what you call morality is actually a sophisticated form of self-betrayal. You've learned to feel good about your fear. You've learned to feel virtuous about your chains. And the scariest part, you've forgotten you're even wearing them. So, what does freedom actually look like in Nietzsche's vision? This is where things get wild. True freedom, according to Nietzsche, begins with something he calls amor fati, love of fate. And no, this isn't some mystical idea about accepting whatever happens with a peaceful smile. It's something far more intense than that. Amor fati means looking at everything in your life, every trauma, every failure, every moment of pain and humiliation, every regret, every loss, and saying, I wouldn't change a single thing. Not because it was all meant to be, not because it all worked out for the best, but because all of it, every single terrible moment, made you who you are, and who you are is something worth becoming. Most people want to edit their past. If only this hadn't happened. If only I had made that other choice. If only I hadn't wasted those years. If only I had been braver, smarter, luckier. Nietzsche says this is psychological poison, because every time you wish your past was different, you're rejecting yourself. You're saying, I wish I was someone else. And you can't build real power, real freedom, on a foundation of self-rejection. But here's the hook that makes this truly transformative. Nietzsche doesn't just want you to accept your past. He wants you to want it. To look at even the worst moments and realize that without them, you wouldn't have the depth, the strength, the wisdom, the character you have now. Every scar is proof you survived something. Every failure is proof you tried something. Every moment of pain is proof you felt something deeply enough to be wounded by it. This brings us to what might be Nietzsche's most famous and most misunderstood idea, the eternal recurrence. Imagine that you had to live your entire life again, exactly as it happened, with all the same choices, all the same pain, all the same embarrassments and failures, and then again and again, forever. Every moment recurring eternally. Could you bear it? Would you want it? Most people would scream no, because most people are running from their own lives. They're enduring existence, not embracing it. They're getting through the days, not devouring them. But Nietzsche says, this is the ultimate test of whether you're actually free. If the thought of living your life over and over fills you with dread, you're not free. You're trapped in a life you don't actually want. Now, here's what's brilliant about this. Nietzsche isn't literally saying time is circular. He's giving you a tool to evaluate every choice you make. Before you do anything, ask yourself, would I want this moment to recur eternally? Would I choose this again and again forever? If the answer is no, then why are you choosing it now? What fear is making you settle for a life you wouldn't want to live twice? This is where the real freedom begins. Not in having no constraints, not in doing whatever you want, but in making every choice so fully, so intentionally, so aligned with who you really are, that you would happily live it over and over forever. That's not escaping fear, that's transcending it entirely. But Nietzsche knows something that most philosophers ignore. You can't become free all at once. You can't just decide to stop being afraid and then wake up transformed. Freedom is something you create through a process he calls becoming who you are. And yes, that phrase sounds paradoxical. How do you become what you already are? That's exactly the point. You're not already who you are. Right now, you're a collection of other people's expectations, society's programming, traumatic reactions, inherited beliefs, and unconscious patterns. The real you, the free you, the powerful you, is buried under all of that. Becoming who you are means excavating yourself. It means peeling away every layer that isn't actually you until you reach something solid and real. This is terrifying work because it means questioning everything. Every belief you inherited from your parents, every value your culture installed in you, every rule you follow without knowing why, every goal you're chasing that someone else chose for you. Nietzsche calls this process the revaluation of all values. You have to audit your entire life and ask, what here is actually mine? What did I choose versus what was chosen for me? And here's what most people discover when they do this honestly. Almost nothing in their life was actually their choice. They're living someone else's dream, following someone else's path, pursuing someone else's definition of success. And they're exhausted and empty because you can't find fulfillment in a borrowed life. So, what do you do with this realization? This is where Nietzsche introduces one of his most powerful concepts, the will to power. Now, forget everything you think you know about this phrase. Nietzsche isn't talking about dominating other people. He's talking about something internal. The will to power is the drive to overcome yourself, to become more than you are, to create, to grow, to expand your capacities. Everything alive wants to grow. A tree doesn't just want to survive, it wants to reach higher, spread wider, become more tree. You're the same way, except you've been taught to suppress this drive. You've been taught that wanting more is greedy, that ambition is selfish, that standing out is arrogant. So you've learned to make yourself smaller, to want less, to be satisfied with less. And you call this humility or contentment, but it's actually just slow death. The will to power is your life force asserting itself. It's the part of you that wants to create something meaningful, to develop your abilities, to test yourself against challenges, to leave a mark on the world that says, I was here and I mattered. When you suppress this drive, you don't become more moral or more spiritual. You just become resentful and bitter and secretly envious of everyone who didn't cage themselves the way you did. Nietzsche saw that most human suffering comes from this internal civil war. You have this drive to grow and create and become more, but you've been taught to treat it like it's something shameful. So you suffocate your own vitality and then wonder why you feel dead inside. You wonder why nothing excites you anymore, why everything feels meaningless. Nietzsche would say, you're experiencing the logical consequence of betraying your own life force. This connects to one of his most provocative ideas: God is dead. Now, whether you're religious or not, hear what he's actually saying. He's not celebrating. He's not being edgy. He's diagnosing a cultural crisis. For thousands of years, people had an external source of meaning. God said what was right and wrong. The church said what life was for. Tradition said who you should be. And then modernity came along and dismantled all of that. Science replaced faith. Individualism replaced tradition. Progress replaced eternal truths. But here's the problem. We killed the old system of meaning without creating a new one. We're like someone who burned down the house they hated without realizing they still need shelter. So now we're living in the ruins, trying to pretend we're fine, but secretly feeling like nothing matters. This is what Nietzsche calls nihilism, the creeping sense that if there's no cosmic purpose, then everything is pointless. Most people respond to this in one of two ways. They either cling desperately to the old beliefs, even though they don't really believe them anymore, or they embrace a kind of passive nihilism, where they just pursue pleasure and comfort and try not to think too hard about the meaninglessness of it all. Nietzsche says both responses are forms of weakness. Both are ways of running from the real challenge. The real challenge is this: can you create your own meaning, not discover it, not find it, create it? Can you look at a universe that doesn't care about you and say, fine, I'll give my own life purpose. I'll decide what matters. I'll create values worth living by. This is what Nietzsche calls active nihilism. Instead of being crushed by meaninglessness, you use it as raw material to build something new. This is the ultimate form of freedom and the ultimate responsibility. You can't blame God for your suffering anymore. You can't blame fate or destiny or the universe. You have to take complete ownership of your life and what you make of it. And yes, this is heavy. This is why Nietzsche said his philosophy wasn't for everyone. Some people need to be told what to do. They need external authorities to give them purpose, and that's fine. But if you want actual freedom, you have to be willing to become your own authority. So let's get practical for a moment. How do you actually live this? How do you move from understanding these ideas intellectually to embodying them? Nietzsche would say, it starts with radical honesty. You have to stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending you're happy when you're not. Stop calling your fear wisdom. Stop justifying your chains as choices. You have to look at your life exactly as it is and admit what you've been avoiding. For most people, the biggest lie they tell themselves is that they're free. They'll say, I could leave this job if I wanted to, but they never do. They'll say, I could speak my mind, but they never do. They'll say, I could pursue my dreams, but they never do. These are comfort lies. They let you feel like you have options while never actually taking them. Real freedom means actually doing the thing, not just maintaining the illusion that you could. Here's a question Nietzsche would ask you. What are you afraid other people will think if you lived according to your own values? Really sit with that, because that fear, that's where your chains are. Every time you modify your behavior based on what others might think, you're betraying yourself. Every time you choose safety over authenticity, you're making yourself smaller, and eventually, you become so small that you forget you were ever capable of being large. Nietzsche talks about the Übermensch, often translated as the overman or superman. This isn't about being superior to other people. It's about being superior to your former self. It's about continually overcoming who you were yesterday. Most people plateau. They reach a certain level of comfort or competence and then they stop growing. They spend the rest of their lives maintaining what they built in their 20s. The Übermensch never stops creating themselves. They never arrive, they're always becoming. Think about what that means for fear. When you're constantly growing, constantly creating new versions of yourself, fear becomes irrelevant. You're not afraid of failure because failure is just information. You're not afraid of judgment because you're not attached to any fixed identity that could be threatened. You're not afraid of uncertainty because uncertainty is where growth happens. Fear loses its power when you stop trying to preserve something. And that's the final piece of Nietzsche's vision. Most fear is about preservation, fear of losing what you have, fear of losing who you think you are, fear of losing people's approval, fear of losing your status or security or sense of control. But you can't preserve anything. Everything changes, everything ends, everyone dies. Trying to hold on to anything is like trying to stop the ocean with your hands. So, Nietzsche offers a different approach. Don't try to preserve, create. Don't try to protect what you have. Become something more. Don't try to avoid loss. Embrace it as part of the process. The only way to live without fear is to stop having anything to lose. And the only way to have nothing to lose is to see your entire life as an act of creation rather than preservation. This is why Amor Fati matters so much. When you love everything that happens, when you want your life exactly as it is, you become invincible. Nothing can threaten you because you're not resisting anything. Nothing can defeat you because you're not trying to win. Nothing can hurt you because you've accepted pain as part of the texture of a fully lived life. This isn't passivity, it's the opposite. It's being so fully alive that you embrace everything life brings. Nietzsche once wrote, "The secret of the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment of existence is to live dangerously, not recklessly, dangerously," which means living in a way where you could lose everything, where you're fully exposed, where you're creating something that matters enough that its failure would devastate you. Because here's what he understood: the only life worth living is one where the stakes are real. Most people minimize their stakes. They play it safe. They protect themselves from loss by never fully investing in anything. They never love completely because they don't want to risk heartbreak. They never pursue their real dreams because they don't want to risk failure. They never speak their truth because they don't want to risk rejection. And then they wonder why life feels empty. It's empty because you emptied it. You removed all the danger and meaning along with it. So here's what living without fear actually looks like in Nietzsche's vision. It's not that you never feel afraid. Fear is a natural response to uncertainty and danger. But you don't let fear make your choices for you. You feel the fear, and you make the choice that aligns with who you want to become. You let your will to power be stronger than your will to safety. You let your desire for growth be stronger than your desire for comfort. You let your commitment to becoming who you are be stronger than your need for approval. And yes, this will cost you things. People who are invested in your smallness will be threatened by your growth. Systems that benefit from your compliance will push back when you stop complying. Parts of yourself that are attached to comfort will resist every step toward danger. This is why Nietzsche's philosophy isn't comforting. It's not supposed to be. Comfort is what you need to escape from. True freedom is the freedom to create your own values and live by them, regardless of what anyone else thinks. It's the freedom to want your life exactly as it is, while simultaneously wanting to create something more. It's the freedom to look at pain and failure and loss and say, this too is part of my story, and I wouldn't erase a word of it. It's the freedom to live so fully that if you had to live your life over and over forever, you'd embrace it with joy. This is Nietzsche's gift, not a system to follow, not a set of rules to obey, but a challenge, a question. Are you actually living? Or are you just managing your fear well enough to get by? Because there's a version of you that could exist, a you that's more powerful, more creative, more alive, more free than you can currently imagine. And the only thing standing between who you are and who you could become is your willingness to let go of every comfortable lie you've been telling yourself about why you can't. So here's how this ends, not with a summary, not with steps to follow, but with a question only you can answer. If you had to live your life again, exactly as it's been so far, would you want to? And if not, what are you going to do about that? Because every moment you have left is another chance to create something worth repeating. Nietzsche isn't offering you peace. He's offering you power. The power to stop being afraid. The power to stop apologizing for existing. The power to create yourself exactly as you choose. That's absolute freedom. And it's